Okay, we're good to go.
Right. Good evening. My name is John Clark. I am Vice President of the Board of Trustees. Our President, John Hunt, is not available tonight, so I'll be acting as the presiding officer. I will therefore call this meeting of the Kennedale Independent School District to order, and I'll go through a roll call. Andrew Biscoe.
Here.
Sean Ham.
Here.
Leslie Carruthers.
Here.
Julie Webb.
Here.
Michael Strange.
Here.
John Clark is here, and John Hunt absent. We have a quorum, and I'll now continue on it. On March 16, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus COVID-19. In accordance of those suspended rules, we certified that the notice of this meeting was posted online for at least 72 hours prior to this emergency meeting. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference or telephone call. We are meeting by use of Zoom video conferencing, which allows for two-way communication between the board. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak during the public comment portion will have their comments read in the comments portion of the posted agenda. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. An audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. And we apologize in advance for any unforeseen difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. Now, the first item we've completed is the roll call. That was item 2, and we do have a quorum. And then moving on to item 3, public comments on agenda items. We have received 2 public comments, and I will read those verbatim as they have been submitted. The first submission was by Robert Lero, that's L-E-R-R-O, P.O. Box 53, Kennedale, Texas 76060. The agenda topic is third 6 weeks grades. Comment: it's really been a struggle working a 40-hour a week or more job and then trying to help the kids in the evening when I have some free time. It's not fair to them. Many universities are using real-time instructions so that the students can ask questions as the assignments are being explained. But Kennedale chose to go with a distance approach videos on assignments. I have one 7-year-old, and as I place them in the computer in the morning, he's not understanding what needs to be done with the videos and then how to click, edit, and do the assignments. Many of our assignments are done incorrectly or not filled out, and we didn't even get a Chromebook from the school. And I noticed just this week that the Chromebook we had doesn't have all the editing features we need. How can we punish the children for our shortcomings? My children were A/B students, and now they're C/D. That is the end of the first comment by Mr. Lero. The next comment is from Chris Burke, P.O. Box 3531, Burleson, Texas 76097. Agenda topic: revised grading policy. Comment: the proposed 2/3 grade assignments per week, and in parentheses secondary, is equivalent to 18 to 24 grades if taken during a 9-week period, a 20% to 60% increase over the 15 currently required. In a time where teachers, students, and parents are dealing with increased hardships, it is not prudent to increase demands. Also, a pass-fail system should be implemented. Many other districts and universities have already implemented such a system. This will allow our students to be on a level playing field with those students as they compete for scholarships and college entrance in the future. This would allow presentation of the material while preventing students from benefiting from a falsely inflated average due to an inability to monitor the security of assignments being turned in or being penalized for circumstances within the home environment that are out of their control. Thank you for your consideration. And that is the end of the comment by Chris Burke. I have no additional comments that have been submitted to me, and I'll just ask, are there any additional comments that staff has received?
None to my knowledge.
Okay. And now we'll close the public comments section on the agenda. We move now to item 4, business items requiring board action. Letter A, discuss and consider approval of resolution to amend KISD grading guidelines for 2019-22. Mr. Superintendent or Dr. Vu?
We'll let Dr. Vu and take over, and Dr. Devlin is with us, who headed up the task force on the grading guidelines.
Hi, yes, I think, go ahead, Dr. Vu.
I was going to introduce you, so thank you so much.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of kind of how the task force was formulated and the steps we took to come up with the proposed guidelines that you have this evening, and then hand the floor over to Dr. Vu. So, board members and Mr. G, it was an honor to take part in this task force committee. Just a brief review of our progress. Initially, campus leaders recruited volunteers for the task force, which resulted in 11 total members. And I'm just going to break down kind of the following grade level and program representation we had on our committee. We had 2 elementary assistant principals, 1 elementary teacher with an inclusion class setting, 1 intermediate assistant principal, 1 intermediate principal, 1 junior high principal, a junior high teacher with a pre-AP honors class setting, our high school principal, and our high school administrator over CTE and providing oversight for AP testing and an AP program. We also had our PEAMS coordinator and myself to round out 11 total. Our first meeting we held was on April 2nd, and at that point, we really just reviewed TEA guidelines and really tried to find an alignment between state regulations and specified needs within our district. We defined parameters based on appropriate grade level needs and special populations. And our ultimate goal was to find balance between student accountability and grace. Though we really want to maintain high expectations throughout our district for student learning, we also realized we're clearly in unprecedented times, and families are facing incredibly unique challenges. Every teacher, student, and parent I know we can agree are facing a new reality that is sometimes really overwhelming. And so our focus was really to keep children emotionally and physically safe, fed, and of course, engaged in learning were the priorities. After our initial meeting, we created our first draft of proposals, received data from stakeholder survey, exchanged some electronic discussion. Representatives from our committee went back and got more feedback from their representation of their campuses, and we reconvened and reviewed all stakeholder feedback. We had a student survey, a parent survey, and a teacher survey. And from those data points, I know were also shared with you. I'm just going to break down some highlights of those. We had majority of parents and students preferring numeric grading system, and we concluded that that was just a consistent with what they're familiar with and what they know, and receiving that feedback. When we break it down to looking more at primary versus secondary level, pass-fail was a little bit more favored amongst our primary elementary grade levels, but numeric still was overall the favored. The majority from all 3 groups preferred that no final exams would be administered. And the majority also agreed that 1 to 2 assignments was appropriate to receive grades on per week per core content area. Also, we inquired about GPA calculations for our underclassmen, as luckily we were able to abide by our current policy with our seniors, and that was a clean break with our third 9 weeks concluding before spring break and before our school closure. So of course, data always tells a story. In addition to the data points, there were responses that we couldn't share due to FERPA, but in those we're just really laced with fear from parents, from teachers, and even from students of not knowing what's to come, learning this new platform, and really wanting no harm to be done to their grade averages. So from that, the task force cultivated what you have in front of you, the proposed grading guidelines. And we hope that we created a system that allows students to build upon their current grade, their current content knowledge, that yet also really contains some safeguards in protecting those kids who may need it from whatever environments they're currently facing. I know as a district, we've worked really hard, especially Mr. Franklin's team and campus administrators, to provide equitable access to these learning platforms, getting Chromebooks out, getting technology to campus, getting technology to families. However, the committee knew that we couldn't really confirm equitable learning environments. We don't know what homes are facing right now. And so we really wanted to provide an opportunity for kids' averages to be enhanced and not harm or hindered. And so that kind of concludes where we landed with the proposal in front of you. And I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Vu to kind of go through that more thoroughly.
Hello, welcome. I am going to share my screen so that you all we can review the guidelines together. So I'm just going to hit the highlights, and then I'm happy to take any questions or clarify anything, any aspect of this that would be helpful for you. I just want to echo what Dr. Devlin shared, and that is our commitment to balancing excellence and high expectations for student learning with also our commitment to extending grace during this difficult and unprecedented time. We wanted to create also an opportunity for students to have an incentive to work and engage with the teachers while also being very aware of these circumstances beyond families' control. So we took a hold harmless approach, meaning that the grades assigned during the fourth 9 weeks can help students' averages, but not hurt them. And so just going through this quickly, I'll point out in pre-K 1, we already use a standards-based approach. And so that will not, there won't be no changes there. In 2nd through 4th, we are looking at a pass versus incomplete for the different assignments. And so teachers will contact parents and caregivers and students every single week to clarify expectations about the priority assignments that will be graded. We are providing a number of opportunities for learning at home and to support learning at home and to ensure that students continue on their learning pathways. But we want to be really clear and respectful of parents to understand these are the priority assignments, meaning these are the ones that are going to be taken for a grade. And the other opportunities that we have provided are just that, not something that's going to be entered into the grade book. And so we have that for 2nd through 4th grades. What we don't have included here, and it is because we're waiting on the timeline and the scheduling of the board meeting, is we have that at least or no more than 2 grades will be entered per week, because we're looking for we want to make sure that we have some continuity there. Once this board meeting goes through, we do want to add a minimum grade requirement so that, for example, 100% of a fourth 9-week grade isn't determined by a single assignment. And so in waiting for this meeting to be scheduled, one thing that will be added here and in the 5th through 12 is that we will have a minimum of 6 assignments in the grade book, and up to 2 per week from this point forward. Getting into grades 5 through 12, they will be sticking to the numeric system, which is the one that they currently use. In terms of the feedback and asking for more specificity, a numeric system provides that opportunity in a way that pass-fail does not always do that. And so when the teachers are assigning grades, they can point to specific areas, and each assignment is aligned with specific standards. And so the students are able to demonstrate mastery of grade level content. In our honors courses, AP courses, and CTE courses, which you have here we say, well, up to 3 formative grades per week. In terms of summative versus formative, the rigor expectations for our assignments in Kennedale have not changed. What this does is ensure that all of our assignments are weighted equally. Another thing that we've added here is the expectation that is in our current grading guidelines, and we wanted to be really clear about this, that teachers are expected to contact parents, students, and caregivers directly using the means that they currently do, which are already outlined in the grading guidelines that we have, just to make sure that parents are understanding the opportunities for learning, but then what the priorities are. So depending on the circumstances, some of our students may be able to spend hours and hours working on math, and some won't have as much time to do that. And so we want to make sure that the lines of communication are open and clear. So in terms of GPA, what we have said is that any grades that are entered into the grade book and for the fourth 9 weeks average, if it is, and you can see here on this chart, if the fourth 9 week average is higher than the third 9 week average, then that will be used to bring up the semester average overall. If the fourth 9 week average is lower than the third 9 week average, then the third 9 week average will be doubled. And so that will be the way that the second semester grades are calculated. So this is written here, and I know you've had a chance to review this, and I'm sure you've read it carefully already, but this chart is provided here so that you have additional clarity. In terms of pass-fail, that's absolutely something that we talked about. We considered the task force discussed it at length, and here are the reasons why the task force determined to go in another direction. First, recording numeric grades is consistent with the practices that we have already established. And one piece of feedback that we received in surveys from both the teachers and the parents is the idea that kids need some normalcy. There's so much that's different, and just for one other thing to not change could be beneficial to them. And that was reflected in the data that we collected. Another consideration is the fact that pass-fail does not provide students with the opportunity to raise their overall semester averages. So as you can see in the chart, if the students do well and they engage with the assignments that the teachers have provided, they do have an opportunity to raise their overall semester average. And so that does serve as an additional incentive for our students, but then it doesn't penalize the students who are grappling with some difficult circumstances related to this health crisis. In addition to that, and this was a really important one, and this primarily impacts students enrolled in high school courses, but I think it's important, is that when you have a pass-fail option and you're in a high school course like biology or English 1, you earn credit for the fall semester of biology and you earn credit for the spring semester of biology. If a student were to, let's say, fail the first semester of biology and earn a 60, but they were able to earn an 80 the second semester of biology, then they would have a 70 and they would get a full year's worth of credit. If we went with a pass-fail option, if they made a 60 the first semester and then a pass second semester, they would still have to retake that first semester of biology. And so this just creates an added incentive, and we think is responsive to the needs of our students, because we have some students in the situation where they would end up having to retake a course later that they wouldn't if they're able to earn a numeric grade this semester, like they would if we were still on campus. In terms of GPA and class rank, the new grading practices will not affect GPA or class rank calculations for graduating seniors, as they were already determined. In terms of students who are not graduating seniors, the semester 2 average will not be included in future GPA calculations for students who are currently in 8th grade and enrolled in high school courses, 9th, 10th, or 11th grades. And then as far as the paper-based assignments, that's a piece that we are still working through due to the health concerns with it. What we are communicating with families is, and we're asking campuses, principals, and teachers, is if there's an opportunity for, once the teachers start taking grades. Right now, some teachers have assigned grades, but that's meant to be feedback. It's not something that's going to be included in the grades moving forward in terms of calculating the fourth 9 week average. We're going to ask if it's an option for parents to send an email, use a digital device, a phone, an iPad, and take a picture of the assignment and send it to our teachers via email. That will be absolutely the safest option. If that is not an option, we're going to be collecting information from each teacher. So the principals are going to collect it and share it with the district office. And then depending on the number, we're going to be able to make a determination there about the safest way to get those assignments back from our families. So if we have 10 students, for example, then our processes are going to look different than if we have 95 students. And so that's something where we're going to get this out there, then we'll collect some more information and we'll make a determination at that point. One question that did come up that we talked about today is that we're asking about the number of devices we have distributed at this point, and a number of devices at all levels. We have currently, based on the results of our survey, 95 students on the list who are receiving paper-based packets. That does include some of our students in our special programs who have IEP accommodations or 504 accommodations, determining that the Chromebook isn't necessarily an appropriate option for them. But in terms of our overall student population, it's a very small percentage of the students who are currently using our paper-based options. So that is what I have for you now, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Dr. View, can you drop your screen share so I can see all the board members? There you go. Thank you.
There you go.
So I guess we'll just go around the horn. Sean, you're first up on my list. Do you have any questions?
No questions from me.
Leslie? You have any questions, Leslie?
No, sorry. Not
Mike?
yet.
Okay. Michael?
Surprise, surprise. So a couple things. One, I was curious, just where I emailed these questions already this morning, so no one was caught off guard, hopefully. But I was curious how many students are still without technology and the internet, those that filled out the survey, that haven't gotten it, or that you just heard.
Yeah, so as I said, we have 95 students on the list as of Monday of this week.
And so they're doing paper-based, or?
Yeah, we have 95 students who are receiving paper-based packets. Yes.
They're being delivered to their homes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have our director of instructional services. She has stepped up and been amazing. She has a spreadsheet with the addresses, and she's delivering them to their doorsteps every Monday.
Okay. So I guess my question was, those that had requested a Chromebook or a device or whatever were able to get that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's great. I appreciate that hard work on that. Sorry, the neighbors doing construction. The third 9 weeks and fourth 9 weeks report cards. How is that? I mean, I know we're already past the third 9 weeks, so.
Yeah, so the grades are available online for parents. And what we had communicated is that when we return back to campus, we would be mailing those. As after the announcement today, we know that that's not going to be an option. So Mr. G and I spoke about we're trying to balance the need for distributing these, absolutely, with also the health risk. And so the grading calendar in terms of when the grades are due and when we're going to be mailing the report cards remains the same. And so those are going to be mailed with the final report card. We're not going to be mailing the third 9 weeks, just to balance the need to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what everyone else around here is doing too. So I think that's fine. So I saw that no final exams are on there. I assume, I mean, I was a high school teacher, so I don't know about junior high or any of the other grades. Are there final exams in the other grade levels?
So here on the document that I shared, it's 5 through 12, there are no final exams.
Okay.
Yeah. In the other grade levels, that's not something that's typical. Yeah,
and that was, I mean, no surprise. That's on the survey, that's what all the teachers and students were like, no, we don't want exams. So the task force, I just wanted to clarify a few things on the task force. So we had 11 people on the task force. 2 of those 11 were teachers. No teacher from the high school, no teacher from Arthur. And then I guess, obviously one of the elementaries, there wasn't a teacher because there was only one. Is that right?
That is right.
They were given an opportunity to volunteer to be on the committee.
Yeah, Mr. Cagle in his faculty meeting that Wednesday before did put it out there. But the role of the task force was to discuss the different options, look at the guidance from TEA, but then also be really responsive to the data. So I know we shared some of that with you, Dr. Devlin, put that together. The teachers absolutely had an opportunity to share their voices with it, even though they weren't all participating on the task force.
Yeah, there's the old saying, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. But, and obviously we're trying to do everything quickly, but I would have liked to seen more representation from teachers, especially at least one from each one. But you know, it is what it is. The teacher guidelines, you answered a few of them, so I appreciate that. I did want to go back to the no summative grades. You said that everything will be weighted equally. So I guess as a teacher, what's the expectation on the assignments that they give then?
The level of rigor for each assignment hasn't changed in terms of our traditional, or I guess our current grading policy. I'm not sure what else you're asking. Can you clarify your question?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know the rigor could try to be the same, but as I put in my email, I mean, essentially now a weekly 1-question check-in could be the same as a whole 2-hour math activity.
Well, that's a good point. This is not included in our grading guidelines, but the guidelines that we've shared with teachers is that each assignment can last no longer than 25 minutes for the independent work portion. We've been really clear about that because, as you said, a grade on a research project that takes hours and hours can look really different than that. And so we've been very clear in our expectations for teachers. It's included on our common lesson template as well as in the KISD expectations that we shared with our faculty and staff.
And if anything that we have heard from parents and from the comments outside of the survey is, you know, how overwhelmed they are. And as you're doing online learning looks a whole lot different than in-class learning. And, you know, there are statistics by districts that have been doing online learning for a while that online assignments take 4 times as long to do as in-class assignments.
Yeah. Well, and I wondered, and I mean, it's fine if that's, you know, if that's what the research is showing. I'm definitely one for research, but I do wonder if there's an opportunity to differentiate though between high school and kindergarten. You know, those would look different as far as summative or being included or not. The other one I had was teachers need to contact parents directly. I wondered if there needed to be some clarification about directly, like I put in the email. I know for elementary teachers, you know, you may only have 25 or 30 kids, whereas a high school teacher is going to have 120 kids.
Yeah, interestingly, this came up when we discussed our grading guidelines that are the ones that we're currently using. The same processes apply. So so we have a line in here that talks about following the same guidelines in our current grading policy, and that's what we're referencing. That the same. You can email them. You know, we're looking for a response. You can call them. At this point now, you can contact Google Classroom as well.
And I will say that that's one thing area why I believe that we have such a low number of students who aren't on the Google Classrooms, that don't have the technology, because our teachers have done an outstanding job and our principals done an outstanding job of coordinating our teachers to make contact with our parents to make sure that our students are on Google Classrooms and they are participating. So I'm going to give kudos to our staff for doing that. But I do believe that, you know, that is something that we're very capable of doing.
Yeah, and I want to echo that too. Our campus administrators and teachers and paraprofessionals, they have been tremendous in this process and aggressively seeking out our students and trying to make contact with them. And not just once, they're doing it regularly. And it's been really impressive. And I think this is new for everybody, and communicating the expectations. I can write it down, but to get a phone call or an email from a teacher, I think is a really important piece. And our teachers have stepped up and done that. It's been amazing. Yeah,
and the Zoom calls have been wonderful. I know Aiden's teachers even holding Zoom calls each week with parents. So that's wonderful, which I missed it, by the way. So I apologize about that. The last 2 questions. So these kind of cover student accountability. So and I think you mentioned a second ago, but some teachers were already instructed to give grades before these last 2 weeks. So I'm just curious if there's how this grading policy, is that retroactive to those grades?
Yeah, so teachers can give grades to provide feedback and to give some specificity in terms of specific assignments and how the work that the students are, demonstration of mastery of skills. But this grading policy, when it goes into effect, I have written here, I haven't shared my screen anymore, but it's at the bottom of the first page. The 4th 9-week average will be calculated beginning with grades entered on Monday. April 20th and beyond. So if the grades have been already entered, that's absolutely fine. That's acceptable as a way to provide feedback. But in terms of calculating the 4th, 9th week average, that won't take into account grades entered before Monday.
Okay, so if they did enter a summative grade last week,
That's a great form of feedback for students. Yeah.
okay. So it won't count towards the 4th 9-week grade.
No.
Okay. And then the last one, I just wanted to do like kind of a hypothetical just to make sure I was clear on this with what the average is. So a student's 4th 9-week average must be higher than the 3rd 9-week average to be included in the 2nd semester. And it said in there, zeros and missing grades cannot be recorded. Well, they'll be, if they could be recorded, but it'd be recorded as a 60. The 60 would be the lowest cumulative grade. So I'm just trying to think with my high school brain here, knowing those kids. A secondary student hypothetically could ignore all assignments a teacher planned for, assigned them and all that for the 4th 9 weeks and just get their 3rd 9 weeks grade.
They could. And as I said, our goal was to balance accountability with grace. Due to our extended closure, the NM grading guidelines were created to support students and teachers during this unprecedented time. And there are kids who could do that in the classroom too. And as a high school teacher, I had those students in my classroom. And at this point, this is unprecedented and unexpected, and we didn't choose to move in this direction. And we don't know what's happening at home with the kids. And so we're trying to create a system that does incentivize the students to work, the students who have all the resources and are able to do that. Students have the opportunity to raise their semester grade, but we have to be supportive and flexible and just recognize that having a Chromebook at home does not create equity. There are just too many other things, too many other factors that can't be accounted for. And so it's not a perfect situation, but I would argue that neither is the classroom learning environment as it stands now. We're grappling with some different kinds of challenges and making the best of it, given our current circumstances.
My biggest push all along has been that there's no way that we can ensure equity to all of our students during this time. And our biggest consideration is realizing that not every kid is going to have the same situation at home, and we have no idea of knowing what that situation is. So we need to be able to grant grace during this time period. And that is our biggest consideration at this time.
The only thing I think I see on here, it all looks, the survey, I absolutely love the survey. We've done, I was looking back at my notes from previous, we've done one for the dress code, which I think stakeholders could say the dress code before to what it is now is wonderful. We did it with the calendar, and now we're doing it with this. So I absolutely love, I think I counted almost 2,200 responses from this survey. Within, what was it, 5 days, I think they had, or even less than that, to do it. All 5
about this issue.
What's that? Say it again.
A lot of passion around this particular issue. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all 5 campuses represented, and we had almost 900 kids. I mean, come on, students. So I love that. The only one I saw that seemed to contradict on the grading policy based on the survey was the very end, the averaging the 3rd. Hold on, let me find it. The very last page on my page. The GPAs for seniors, you put ending it at the 3rd 9 weeks, which was already the policy, which that was, I mean, we dodged a bullet right there. I know there's a lot of districts that are really having trouble with that, and that did not.
The 9 weeks is looking pretty good now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It worked out well. However, though, it does contradict with how we're treating everyone else. The 9th, 10th, and 11th, and I guess the 8th graders that are taking high school courses, that we're not counting the 3rd 9 weeks. And when I look at the survey, it was either yes, count it for the whole semester, or yes, count it for the 3rd 6 weeks. That was by far the majority from parents, students, and teachers. So I just wonder if that 3rd 9 weeks can be included in their GPA and rank, since that was still the normal classroom.
That was stated,
Dr.
None.
I'll let you take this one since you were a part of the task force and you led those discussions.
Yeah, so it was pretty, parents kind of had an even split. The 35, about 36% of them said no spring semester grades should be included. Students had 40% that no spring grades should be included. And then teachers had the highest with 55% saying that the third 9 weeks should be included. We really looked at all of these pieces and we went back and forth because we're not having final exams plus the fourth 9 weeks, which is really a good percentage of the spring semester grade. We decided it wasn't fair to include that. So that's why we ended up making it more of a clean cut at the end of the fall semester and not including anything in the third 9 weeks because it didn't have an opportunity to bring up their spring semester with the fourth 9 weeks because we wouldn't include the fourth 9 weeks. We ended it with the fall semester. They had the first 9 weeks, the second 9 weeks, and their fall exams to calculate into that. And so we looked at all those data points and decided there.
But we are using it with the seniors for their GPA and rank.
Because that was already in policy.
And that's what we do prior we ended at the 5th 6 weeks. Now we ended the third 9 weeks.
Right. To me, that's of all these things, like whatever, right? But the GPA and class rank, that will carry with them from 9th grade to 10th grade. I guess that's my only pushback is just that one thing. And since we're already doing it with the seniors, we can just keep it consistent with everybody.
And this is where I go back to equity, and we cannot assure equity in these times. And that's where I believe that they're not going to have a chance to use the fourth 9 weeks to help balance out that average.
Well, I would argue back and say that doesn't count because they were in their traditional classroom during the third 9 weeks.
Yeah, and it only affects the ones the lower classmen because they would still be graded on theirs. Hold on a second, guys. I need to get the plug in before my computer goes out. But basically. It wouldn't help the seniors at all. Possibly you could raise your grades as the underclassmen, but you can't lower them. So it's a win-win for a student to me.
But I think that what Mr. G is saying is that if I'm in 9th grade and I make a 60 third 9 weeks, and then I'm doing all these things fourth 9 weeks, and then I also have the semester exam, that's what I am anticipating.
Yeah.
That's what the family's expecting. And if we come back and say, oh, we're going to take that 60 and include it into your GPA, that's not what they went into the third 9 weeks believing. And so I think what the grading task force determined is that in this imperfect scenario where there's not an ideal situation, that cutting it off at semester where they did have the first 9 weeks, second 9 weeks, and a semester exam, and so they don't have that option in the second semester was the best of two imperfect choices.
Okay.
And that's where the seniors, like I said, I keep pointing out, that was in policy. They knew that. So they knew their third 9 weeks was where it ended, where the other kids didn't know that was going to be it. So having that clean break at the first semester makes more sense.
Yeah, otherwise we're changing the rules in the middle of the game.
Exactly. And that's not something that I, as a parent, would get behind in terms of just thinking about doing what's best for kids.
Which goes back to the equity question and issue.
Andrew, do you have anything else in terms of questions?
Michael, are you finished?
That's it for me.
Okay. Don't really have any other questions. I guess a couple of the things. Of the 95 kids that are still paper only, and that's from second grade, third grade on through 12th, right? Are any of those not by choice, or is it a financial or internet problem that they don't have or don't want? Because there are some parents that don't want the younger kids to be on the computer.
We have a variety of circumstances. We were just talking this morning. We have a handful of families, they don't want to leave their house. So we're offering a Chromebook, but they don't want to come.
Okay.
But I know Mr. G and Mr. Franklin have been working very closely together to create some processes for if a student wants the device, they're creating opportunities for them to get them. They're still in the process of it. And Mr. G can speak to that more than I can. But in terms of your question, it depends on the family. There's not a, one scenario, but we have a lot of different kinds of scenarios.
Julie?
Some of it, they have computers. They're just choosing not to get on and do the work. We've had some parents who say, we're not going to participate. We've had other ones who, they want more. So it's kind of all over the place. And I don't know that we're going to be able 100% reach everybody across the board. We've worked very hard. I'm very proud of our staff for the efforts that we've made to ensure that everybody has as equitable of an opportunity. And all we can do is provide the opportunity. And one of the things is, some people simply are preferring the paper packets. That's what they want. They feel more comfortable with that. So we are providing those paper packets to those families. So I don't think it's not that they haven't had an opportunity to try to get the internet. And we sent out the survey. There are some families that don't have internet service, and we've worked on ways to try to get them free internet service through companies.
Okay.
Mr. Franklin has provided that information to them. We also have created a help desk, and every Tuesday we have for people who want to get a computer, they have an opportunity to pick up the Chromebooks. So Tuesday nights we have that at the junior high school.
So it's still, some people are still available. Okay.
Yes.
Our director of instructional services, she actually delivered some Chromebooks to some families.
So just quickly, like we had in this public comments, evidently they thought they had a Chromebook, but now they're finding their Chromebook doesn't do the stuff. Is somebody contacting or going to contact them and, offer another one? Because I think some thought, oh, I've got what I need. And now that they're going, they're like, oh, this doesn't work as well.
That's absolutely happened, and there's been some cases where we've seen people, they had an iPad or something at home, and they determined that it either wasn't a good enough version of iOS to be compatible with everything, and they're working through the campuses on that. And I just want to clarify what Mr. G had said as well on the Tuesday pickups that we have scheduled. We're wanting everybody to go through the campus and work through that. If there's an actual problem with the Chromebook, we're working with those families directly. What we do not want is random people showing up at these, because we're going through processes ahead of time to determine who's showing up, what devices to issue, so it can be safe for our staff and for the people showing up as well. But to answer your question, yes, right now the campus is still talking to people. We're still making arrangements for those that need.
Sounds good. Thanks, sir. And thank you, Dr. Bowen and Dr. Devon.
Julie, your opportunity.
The only thing that I had a question on is elementary school. I noticed that if they come up as incomplete,
Becky.
if they come up as incomplete, then they are able to have the reteach resubmit opportunity. What does that mean? Because I kind of mimic some of the concerns that I see. We're getting a lot of, we're not getting that, we're not getting a phone call, we're not getting the face-to-face Zoom interactions, we're getting the teacher-based recording, and I'm, as the parent, going and teaching my student the material, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But what worries me is the inequity of that with the other families. So what happens when you get the incomplete? How do we do better to those children that need to be retaught? Are we just going to try the same thing over again? Or is this something that we reevaluate the next school year when it can be face-to-face? What's your plan for that?
Are you asking specifically about the way that grades are assigned? Or are you asking more about reteach, retest?
Reteach, so these kids aren't left behind.
Okay, so we have we have some plans in the works. Ms. Dickey is our special program specialist, and she this week has started meeting with our RTI interventionists to develop a district-wide plan to provide some additional remediation. So in many cases, RTI interventionists, they'll do a pull-out and do an extra, guided reading assignment. But in talking with a lot of our teachers and getting some feedback from our families, what we realize is that these kids who struggle in the classroom, they're struggling at home as well, right? And as you mentioned, some of our parents aren't able, or they don't have. There's a reason they're not able to provide that support as well. And so Ms. Dickey is working on a schedule so that these interventionists that we have on our campuses can do some push in and actually support with the work in the classroom, not necessarily do an extra lesson, though we have that going on as well. In some cases, we're trying to offer as a variety of opportunities, but we do have some interventionists who are doing some RTI, but instead of doing something else, they're doing this, this support within the Google Classroom and the work for their grade level content area. In terms of, and I do want to say the incomplete, so we've already determined, and this is across the state of Texas, this is not just in Kennedale, we're going to have to do some intensive remediation at the beginning of the year, and everybody is. And so when we have third grade, we're going to have to look at our scope and sequence and look at our timeline, the way we're teaching our standards. We're going to have to teach second grade standards in third grade. That's absolutely, that's a non-negotiable. And so one great thing that we started this year is using MAP as a universal screener. We have rolled it up. So next year we're going to go all the way through high school, and you can do an assessment, and it will give you specific skills, and it will show you where on the continuum of learning a student falls. And so it'll allow a teacher to look and truly differentiate for individual students. Another, just, I don't want to call it luck because we were really intentional and thoughtful in choosing it, but it's going to work out tremendously well for us because I met with some area curriculum supervisors from different districts around just this week, and they were talking, several big name districts who are very close to Kennedale were talking about looking at that particular screener and looking at it for next year because of this particular ability for it to pinpoint standards. As far as the incomplete, Dr. Devlin and I talked about that because I didn't meet with the task force, and we talked afterwards. So in terms of incomplete, what if a student gets an incomplete fourth 9 weeks? Well, then what if it's incomplete and not failure? And that's where I want to point. I'm going to share my screen one more time just so I can show you this. That's where I'll point here to this piece. Students at end of year performance will be reviewed holistically. All decisions regarding promotion will consider evidence of learning during the first, second, third 9-week grading cycles. So in the same way that we have our committees meet to make promotional decisions, they're going to do that this year as well. We just want to make sure that they're looking at the students' evidence of learning. And at the end of the day, grades are assigned to determine whether or not students have demonstrated mastery of the standards. And so when we're talking about redo, reteach, we're not saying the student's going to get the same assignment over and over and over. That's not necessarily the goal. What we're looking at is we have these specific standards that are scoped in our scope and sequence documents, and we're looking at students' mastery of those standards. And so we're thinking about different ways that students can demonstrate mastery of grade level standards, and that's part of the redo, reteach as well. Did that answer your question?
Yes. My main concern was in the meantime, and I think the interventionist stepping in is huge. That keeps us moving and the ball moving, even if we're not all the way where we should be. We're still intentional, and I think that's great.
It's not going to work for every student, but we're trying to capture as much as we can during this difficult time.
And I believe the other reality is that we know that we're going to have intensive remediation at the beginning of the school year next year, and having the ability to use maps is going to help us with that remediation quicker and faster. And what? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, let you finish. I was going to ask, are there any other questions from the group?
Well, I was going to touch on the social emotional, Dr. Devlin, what we're seeing with some of when we're talking about equity and we're talking about some of the issues we've been dealing I know that we've had recently some things popping up on our Gaggle with students and issues and dealing with the social emotional, and this is a stressful time for parents. It's also a stressful time for our students. And you want to touch on that just a second, Dr. Devlin?
Hi, yes. So just in our department, I know we have definitely had some issues of self-harm and parents losing jobs and getting food and resources and bill assistance. And that should come through our department. So that's the lens in which we view things. In addition to now trying to navigate online learning and older siblings working with younger siblings because parents are out working because they're essential in their job force. So just taking all of that into consideration, just the well-being, our teachers are amazing and they can catch these kids up, but the trauma in which they're going to endure right now, we really need to be careful with and just making sure we're providing that support first before everything else.
Thank you.
And along that vein, again, kind of back on Julie's issues with the incomplete, and realistically, is it fair to, in the situation we're facing, that you can say any child suffers an incomplete because you just don't know what's going on in that home? And on the other hand, I know there are probably circumstances where the child's grades are significantly better than what was happening when they're in the classroom, which is probably an indication of parental support, perhaps, or maybe more than that. So again, are we giving teachers a lot of assistance in managing that assessment piece?
With assignments specifically, or
Well,
can you clarify?
Well, I think it has to do with really truly evaluating this student's performance. Maybe a capable student, but we're going to give them an incomplete because I've not gotten one piece of work back and the parents are stressed out and can't get there. Or the other hand, I've gotten a lot of work back and it is way better than the performance of the student before. Are we helping the teachers as they're looking at those to provide that input, as you say, holistically, to say, what am I going to do with this particular student?
I would say that those kinds of questions come up throughout the year. And that's one of the arguments against homework for that very reason, focusing on what the students do in class. As far as guidance and support for teachers, we have a tremendous team in the Curriculum and Student Services Department. We have 3 specialists, Ms. Dickey, Dr. Spencer, and Dr. Keys, and they are doing weekly PLCs with teachers. They're doing exemplar lessons for them. They are talking them through. They're helping with planning. They are going above and beyond to support these teachers in ways that it inspires me personally. So in terms of supporting teachers, yes, that is absolutely happening. In terms of thinking about assessment specifically, I haven't been involved in those conversations, but it's something that I can ensure happens from this point forward. I assume it already has, but since I haven't been there, I don't want to speak for something that I wasn't a part of.
And the only other issue I have is, when are we going to share this document? Will it go out after we vote on it tonight so parents will have an understanding what we're going to do? I guess, is that the first look they're going to have at this?
I've been waiting for the meeting.
Okay. Then that's our fault.
I am going to be sending out a Blackboard message about the governor's message today, and then UIL, and I will touch on this as well, but Dr. Vu will be sending out the guidelines.
One other quick question is the grades, report cards and stuff like that. Has that message already been sent out, or is this going to be part of this action also?
In terms of the report card for third 9 weeks or fourth 9 weeks?
Third 9 weeks.
Third 9 weeks, yeah. Mr. G sent that out when we started. And what he said is that we're going to send them out when we come back to school, which at this point, that timeline looks a little bit different, I think, than we knew at the time. But in terms of fourth 9 weeks, they're going to be mailed on the same schedule that they would otherwise be mailed.
And has the parents been informed that they should know, they should be checking the internet for their grades anyway, but some of them don't. And I was just wondering if anybody has actually put any kind of statement or sent anything to the parents saying, hey, the grades are there available for you to look at.
That information did go out.
Okay.
Yes, we try to make sure that all of our parents on the parent portal have access to it. So that if they have the parent portal, they should be able to pull up their students' grades from the third 9 weeks. But we can also send out that it will be included. One report card will be going out at the end. We can include that in the messaging that we send out.
But as Michael said, you can lead a horse to water. Sometimes doesn't mean they'll drink. So, but thank you for that.
The other point I wanted to ask is, again, it was kind of brought up by Mr. Burke in terms of the number of grades. And again, I had an opportunity to look at my wife's, just open up a week and look at a particular student's weekly view. Again, if you go through 4 core subjects, supplementals, now art, music, PE, etc., it's overwhelming in some respects. I think some parents get that shock when you open up and say, how is my student going to do all this, one, if I'm not there? And do we kind of look at that in give great attention to it in the policy that we're now about to propose?
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons why in the common lesson template, one, we have that so that parents are able to just have some consistency and continuity in what they're looking at. But then also we put a 25-minute limit on what the length of independent work time.
Yeah, but 25 minutes with 8 subjects. Again.
Right. So for example, two assignments a week, 25 minutes a week. So if you have your 4 core subjects, then that's going to be approximately, right, 1 hour per subject per week. So 4 hours a week. And then you have the additional activities from, some of our specials or some of our electives. It is a lot, but 4 hours a week is significantly less than the amount of time they spend doing schoolwork during the school week. And that's where our thinking was coming from.
And I understand that, but again, 4 hours a week for a 3rd grader on their own may be an impossible task.
And that's tough. And that's exactly why our grading guidelines say we're balancing accountability and grace. Because if they are not able to do it and their parents are working, like my own children, I'm working right now. My husband is an essential employee as well. That's part of why we built in these grace measures into the grading policy, because at some point we can't account for all of the different things, and we want to be sensitive to those situations.
There's another component that wasn't shown on that, but when we talked the other day, Dr. Vu, with the like the lower grade levels, the 2 reading and writing was 2, and the math were 2, and then 1 each of social science and social studies, where we're cutting down that level of expectations for the grade levels. As you get to the lower grade levels, those numbers go down.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I can pull this up for you so that you all can see it. This is the folder that I have shared with teachers. I'm just going to show you the common lesson template that has these. Mr. G had the same question, and we talked about that. So I'll pull that up for you.
While you're doing that, I've heard several complaints about teachers doing a whole lot, like a whole bunch of videos. You have to watch this video, this video, this video, and they're 20 minutes long or so, and then the assignments. I don't know if that's truth or not, but just to be something for them to be aware of, and trying how much for your class are you expecting your kids to be sitting there on the computer. If it's watching a video, if it's doing an assignment or whatever. But if you're giving them 6 videos to watch in a week, and then, your assignments, that's a lot. That could be a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. What we recommended is that for each priority lesson, there's a 3 to 5 minute video. So this is this is for elementary, so a self-contained teacher. So there are 2 priority lessons here, so about 50 minutes, and then 1 priority lesson for science and social studies. And then we have these enrichment lessons for the different specials. The ones that would be graded would be these priority lessons. So, you have 4, 5, 6 a week in terms of assignments. And then we have here where we're asking, all right, what is your lesson objective? What are you asking the students to read or watch? And as I said, we recommended that this is 3 to 5 minutes, and then a way for students to demonstrate learning. What is it that they are practicing, working on? So it's the I do, you do model, gradual release of responsibility. We have a separate one for our content area teachers. And one thing I'll point out here is that each lesson should take approximately 25 minutes to complete. And as Mr. G said, that you can't always account for that, but we're trying to give really clear expectations and guidelines. So we have here priority lessons 2 for a specific content area. Another thing that we have for our teachers is, by the way, I haven't shown you this. We've been working on this. Dr. Spencer spent a lot of time on it today. I think it looks really good. This is our teaching at home site. This is something we've created for teachers. So we have our district guidelines here. So you can click here and you can see this document that I have created with specific guidelines and a weekly FAQ. So the different expectations, and this is where we have the 3 to 5 minute recommendation here. So you can kind of see that. So the recommendation is that each lesson is approximately 3 to 5 minutes within the video lessons. We said it may be longer if it's appropriate for the specific skill, but as in the lesson planning template, we're asking for 25 minutes. I can do some more research I haven't heard anything about 6 different videos for a single assignment. That's not something that's come to me, but that's something I'll look into.
And it may not be for,
yeah, I can look into that. So we have this, but what's really neat is we have these different aspects, these different technology tools. And then, this one's not working now. But Dr. Spencer's created all kinds of just really short videos. So if teachers are looking for supporting Google Classroom, just how do you upload assignments? How do you do accommodations? We have them for Zoom. We have the required lesson components, and then Dr. Keys has been uploading, she's been doing some intense support with pre-K through 4. So we have videos from their weekly meetings there. So in case, some of our teachers aren't able to attend, they can go back and they can watch these videos at a later date. It's been really helpful, and I think the teachers are appreciating it a lot. We also have this tech toolbox, so you can see this piece. So we have all kinds of resources for teachers. Dr. Devlin created a counseling at home site. So we have learning at home, which is for families. We have teaching at home, which is for teachers. It provides support for teaching. And then we have this virtual counseling site. And this is for families that she's created. And so you can go here and you can see all these different components. It's really wonderful. So going back to this one, we're working on putting out some lesson plan exemplars, which aren't there yet, but that's a way. We're just thinking through what are some ways that we can clarify and support. We put information out there and we think that it's clear, but sometimes, just providing a little bit more clarity. This is the required lesson components, which I have shown you. Here's the virtual lesson guidelines. So this is where we've tried to provide a succinct document with some additional clarity about what the teachers are asked to do. It has the lesson plan templates, and it also has the specific skills that the teachers are teaching each week. And then we have this help desk, which is also a work in progress, but we've broken it down. I need help with technology integration. I need help with curriculum. I need help with paper-based instructional materials. And this links to both our learning at home site and our teaching at home site, so that you can go here and you can see also for our families, they can, if they need help, it links there as well. So we are working to provide all this extra support, but as Dr. Devlin and Mr. G said, giving a kid a Chromebook isn't equity, right? There are situations at home that just by design and because of the circumstances that we're in are inequitable, but we're trying to think about all the different ways that we can provide this additional support for them. I think I addressed your question. I hope I did. Is this what you were asking about? Just in terms of what we're offering for teachers?
No, I think they're great resources for teachers. I just think that from the standpoint of the parent or student going onto their weekly assignment list, it can be overwhelming when you think, and again, the one I saw, it didn't really break out, this is a gradable issue and this is not gradable. So you just see a long list, and that's the first thing they see. They don't see focus on these 2. They see the list and they think about that times 4 plus specials if they have them.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about and not even talking about kids who are in special ed and the additional resource they have. I mean, it's overwhelming for some of them. And I just want to make sure that we continue to offer support, both the teachers with that group and to the parents to recognize, you did a great job, because I know other areas they put out too much and they didn't work, and they didn't work together. And so, I mean, we're way ahead on that process just from talking to other parents in other districts. But, I hope that we can continue to provide communication to the parents that putting it out there and then not reminding them to go there, it gets lost. So
you're talking exactly what I brought up this morning, is that I've heard from other districts and I've seen from my wife's experience that, these kids get overwhelmed with all these different assignments that are in there and all these different videos and all this other stuff that are being thrown in there. Focus on the priority lessons, and that was my key thing this morning. Focus on the priority lessons. And that's what our kids need to understand. Their families need to understand. That's where their main focus needs to be on, is the priority lessons.
And so let's make that clear.
Yes. Can you remind everybody when we go back out with this I don't know if you can see this because I can't share my screen like Dr. Voot, but our elementary grades get this at a glance, Mr. Clark, and it's awesome. Like, it tells me like day to day. I have highlighted her priority, so I can look at this, because I had the same thing, and I had parents that kept contacting me saying, my kid is stressed out, they don't understand what's going on. And some of the other parents said, oh, there's this one link you need to click on. If you click on that at a glance, then it breaks down your priority and separates it out. Because if not, you just see the stream of feed that has the supplemental with all of it. But if we could reiterate that this is kind of your golden ticket, that's a lifesaver for parents to see.
I wish they would contact their teachers and ask them that question, especially if you're overwhelmed with stuff like that. To me, the first source what I'd go to, me as a parent, I'm asking the teacher, why are you giving these 18 assignments and she can't do all that? And that teacher,
this one did, and it came right back to me because she wasn't getting a response.
Okay.
The kindergarten is not going to say that, or first grader, they're not going to. Like a junior high and high school kid would definitely do that, but the younger kids are not.
And it's easier to complain on social media.
If for me, as a parent, I'm looking at the assignments. I'm looking at, especially the younger ones, because those are the ones I've got to help the most. And if I'm seeing that, good Lord, this is going to take all day and I don't have all day, I want to ask the teacher, which one of these do I, is priority, or which one of these can I really concentrate on to make sure that my kid stays at the level that they need to be in? And which one, do we need to watch this video over here about, I don't know, Finding Nemo?
Yeah, I will say, that was actually what we're talking about has been a point of discussion in both of our principal meeting on Wednesday morning, or our district leader meeting on Wednesday morning and on Friday morning. And, hindsight's 2020, and it's easy to look back and say, oh, here's how we can do it better. But one thing that we are changing this week is the very first communication that I put out to parents. I said, we're putting this information out. We have priority lessons, and by priority, I mean, and I defined it, and here's supplemental lessons, and by supplemental, I mean, in my mind, knowing that priority is likely where we're headed with grading, but I'm not going to put that out there until that's something that's been presented to you all. But one thing we didn't do, and we are going to do this this next week, is that lesson plan template. The teachers, I've been very clear in saying that template needs to be shared with parents every single week. The parents need to know what are the priority lessons, what are the supplemental lessons. And in my mind, I'm thinking sharing with parents, is all parents. But one thing that we're going to do this week is for each grade level, we're going to copy the priority lessons and put it on top of the paper-based packet. So when the parents receive the packet, they're going to get priority lesson identified at the top of the packet. It seems like such an obvious thing to do, but I'll say when we sent it out, I didn't think about it, and now I did. And so that's just an example of we're looking back, we're reflecting, we're getting better every week. And I understand some of the noise and where it came from, because I thought that we were being clear, but there absolutely is an opportunity to be even more clear, and we're going to do it like that starting on Monday.
Yeah. I'm absolutely impressed with the amount and the time and the quality of the things that you guys have put out.
The team is amazing. The people in Kennedale, I have been so impressed. The Curriculum Student Services team is hands down the best in Texas. They're amazing. They've been doing so much. A district our size, we're hand delivering. We're doing all kinds of things. We have these videos online. We have these websites. It's just, it's not perfect. There are absolutely ways to make it better. There's no such thing as perfect. We're always going to be striving to get better. But I can say with 100% certainty that we are all in doing as much as we can and as much as we can think of to serve these kids and these families.
Well, we spent a good amount of time on it. It's an important issue. Are there any other questions or any other issues we want to address?
I wonder how all this will be communicated. Mr. G mentioned the Blackboard, which is useful as far as email, but I really like the video that he did with Kennedale News. I think Dr. Vu mentioned earlier, like having a video is helpful, or putting it on the district. I don't know what that looks like, but more than just an email, I think would be useful for parents and students alike.
You're gonna make Mr. G a superstar?
Hey, welcome to the 21st century. Like that's how it works.
Yeah, I'm getting more airtime lately than I think I'm used to. So,
I'll put this out there. It takes, so this communicating this information, I absolutely agree, and I want to do it as well. It takes a little bit of time to put it, so I can't say that it's going to be out on Friday night after the meeting, but I like the idea. Mr. G, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Like you said, we, I do feel like we are way ahead of a lot of our bigger districts around us. I just saw on the news, Fort Worth ISD just put out their parent survey about technology. We did that weeks ago. We have a help desk for technology. We have a help desk for curriculum services. We have a help desk for special services. We have so many things that are already in place that districts larger than us don't have. So very, very proud of our staff. Our messaging, I believe that we have been very proactive in our messaging. I like to say we can make a video for everything, but I mean, those do take time. And that one the other day was almost 30 minutes long to answer all those questions. But we'll continue to work on it and continue to get our messaging out.
And I think it'd be important to share some real basic things like, why can't our teachers have a classroom with all their kids interacting on one video? A lot of parents don't understand that we've got restrictions. My legal assistant, her grandchildren are in Mansfield, and she can't have communications with the teachers because in the one elementary school, the principal is required to be on every phone conference or conference with the teacher and student. So think about that. One person has to deal with 300 students. So there are a lot of issues that we haven't experienced. Thank you, Dr. Vu and Dr. Devlin, that you got ahead of that curve. But I mean, I do think we need to do the little things like let them know we cannot have all of our students in an unsecure environment on a camera with other students' homes, et cetera. But they don't understand that. They want the same thing going on at home that happened in school, where there's a teacher on the video teaching their lesson and the child sitting there watching on the computer. And there are a lot of parents who can't get beyond that expectation, but we do need to continue to educate them about it.
Even situations where with the teacher on the video, some students say, hey, leave the video up and you can leave and we just want to talk amongst our friends. And you can't do anything like that either, because students being students will take advantage of it.
Yes, there are so many legal ramifications, but just the whole logistics of trying to put together a classroom. It's great to say you're going to teach a class. So a high school teacher pulls in a class of 15 at this time, and they'd be teaching all day long again. And I don't know that that's realistic. And those kids are in other classrooms and trying to, how do you balance all that with the teachers and their schedules and what kid's supposed to be in what classroom? You're looking at a logistical nightmare. As far
Teachers
as
have families too. Let's just be really transparent about the fact we're talking about students and their families, but teachers have children at home that they're trying to manage and juggle in familial responsibilities that we can't account for when they're in the school building. And we're all doing the best we can, but we're all human with human needs and responsibilities. And those of us with small children, it just looks different right now than it does otherwise. And I agree about the communication, just keeping it open and just reminding everybody we're all doing the best that we can in our current circumstances.
Well, and always letting them know, here's one or two things why that might not work, or here's a reason why, of course you can't go through all 100 reasons why the legal deal, but sometimes just jogging their idea and then they go, oh, I hadn't thought about that, because they don't think of the big picture. Like you said, they're thinking of, I want my teacher talking to the screen and my kid, but they're not thinking about all the other stuff going on. So just occasionally kind of saying, well, like you did with the survey, well, the parents and the students wanted numeric grades. That's how that survey, went. And, just kind of communicating, here's one or two reasons why we're doing it this way.
Yes, I think that's a great idea and a good point. Thank you.
Well, at this point in time, I'll be open to a motion with regard to the resolution regarding amending our grading guidelines.
I make a motion to approve the resolution on amending the KISD grading guidelines for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year.
A motion by Mr. Ham,
Second.
second by Ms. Carruthers. Is there any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll go through a roll call. Michael Strange.
Am I voting yes or no? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Usually I'm last,
Have to reverse the order sometimes.
I'm going to say no.
Julie Webb,
Yes.
Leslie Carruthers,
Yes.
Sean Ham,
Yes.
Andrew Bisco,
Yes.
John Clark, yes. So Leslie, have that recorded?
Yes.
There are no other items on our agenda for this evening. Is there any other matters for discussion, Mr. G, pertaining to these issues?
None at this time. I will say that we have our roofing consultants out. They've been on the roofs this week, and we hope to have some information to you soon.
All right. Well, I want to first off thank all the board members for taking time out on Friday evening. Dr. Vu, Dr. Devlin, Mr. Franklin, thank you for taking additional time to help us get through this time on these emergency meetings. I appreciate all your efforts. And with that, we are in adjournment. All right. I see Sean. Mike's got a question.
When's our next meeting? When's our next meeting? I wanted to make sure.
We should have a regular meeting.
You're scheduled for the 30th of April.
April 30th. Okay. All right.
Any other questions? All right. Mr. Franklin, going to show the meeting ending at 6:55.
Dr. Devlin, Dr. Vu, very thorough job. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Very much.